Mr. Roberto Bissio, welcome to Lebanon.
Thank you, Ziad.
And you've been here in Lebanon participating in the workshop, regional workshop organized by the Arab Trade Union for Development. It was mainly on business and human rights. So, can you say something about the topic and the substance of this debate that you witnessed for during these 2 days?
The debate was extremely interesting, and we had people talking on the business side, on the government side, and particularly on the trade union side and civil society. And of course that spreads a variety of views, of opinions, all around the issue of how do we promote, respect, protect human rights, which is universal legal obligations of all states, and in a world where business is more and more a protagonist, how do we ensure that business activities do not confront, not only abide to, but hopefully actually contribute. And well, it's a big issue, it's a big subject, but I saw many trends emerging which are from the region and out of the region, but are universal, such as, well, what is the balance between the profit motivation of business and the common interest? What is the balance between the contribution of business to development, positive contribution, for which they get stimulus, tax exemptions, subsidies, and the results that this should be delivered. And also what are the balances and the risk between the foreign investment and the country's own initiatives. All of those are very delicate issues. There are multiple policy options in each country, but there are also global trends and problems that somehow are beyond the capacity of a single country to deal with them.
So let's start from here. You are the coordinator of the Social Watch, which is a global network, and the Social Watch was mainly had an objective to monitor the implementation of the international commitments related to poverty eradication or development in general, with the Millennium Development Goals and the Millennium Declaration. And most recently, you've been part of a team who, and you contributed very actively to the production of a report. So let's a little bit talk about, as coordinator of the Social Watch and an actor involved in this global civil society movement, what is your main, let's say, impression and assessment to the Agenda 2030 adopted in the United Nations last year?
I think that the Agenda 2030 is an extremely important step. It's a change in the development paradigm, and it's a universal agenda, and that's extremely important. Let me explain. As you know, the Millennium Development Goals were basically focusing on extreme poverty and associated issues of infant mortality, maternal mortality, hunger, which are all ways of depicting the same problem, and what needs to be done around that. And the protagonists, of course, are the countries where the so-called absolute poor, people living with under $1 a day, now updated to $1.90 a day, which is a very, very low benchmark. The countries where they live have definitely a responsibility towards helping them improve their fate, and very rich donor countries that have promised already 40 years ago to dedicate 0.7% of the GDP to assist. Now, this is an important agenda, but it's limited, and for many middle-income countries, countries that are not of the donor club, because they're not that rich, but are also not that poor, were a bit spectators of that agenda, but for them, most of the indicators and the targets they had met already in the year 2000 when the targets were defined to a large extent. So this was not a challenge to do better. You know, they were, okay, you did well, we will concentrate on those that are doing worse. So they were like, okay, it's not really our agenda. And it was also for social movements in rich countries, which in the last 20 years have suffered a problem of increased inequalities, increases in poverty as locally defined, but that is how people perceive. Poverty is a social phenomenon, and it's relative to what the society has and perceived. It always has been. That poverty and those social problems, which are problems everywhere, in all countries, and have been increasing, were completely ignored. There was no discussion about them, they were out of the questions, and so on. So the new agenda, approved in September last year, incorporates those issues. It talks about relative poverty in all countries of the world, and the need to reduce it. It talks about inequalities in a wider sense, which is not just income inequalities, but all kinds of access inequalities. And it puts that in a context of production and consumption patterns that need to be sustainable. Because traditionally, development used to be equated with economic growth. Okay, we will grow, and we will end up being happy like Sweden or Denmark. Or
growth and development.
Whatever. Growth and development was almost synonymous. And now it is very clear that this kind of growth is impossible within the planetary boundaries because of climate change, because of resource exhaustion, because we are polluting the oceans, because we are decimating biodiversity, and. So that needs to change. And the interesting thing of the agenda, it says this needs to change first in the countries that are responsible for creating the problem, which is the rich developed countries. So now, in this new concept, nobody can call itself sustainably developed. There is no single country that can say, oh, I have achieved gender equality, sustainability in my production and consumption, and justice, and so that doesn't exist. Which doesn't mean that all these goals are not important. It just means everybody has a responsibility. And everybody, every government of the world is to be made accountable. Because they all said, this is what we are going to do, this is where we need to be in 2030.